I was born in 1929, and shortly after, the Great Depression hit. There was a lot of unemployment. I had a pretty good childhood as a whole because my dad was a printer, and almost everybody wanted to read a newspaper. There was no TV, of course, so he was seldom ever looking for a job. I was delivering newspapers at that time, and I can recall to this day the main headlines were Pearl Harbor bombed, and I sold more newspapers that Sunday than I ever did. You had to be 17 to join, and the war was over in '46, so I wasn't interested at that time to join the military until the Korean War came along. I heard things about the Army, not that I'm degrading the Army, but I know the training wasn't up to same standards as the Marines, and so that's the main reason I joined the Marines. I was in a squad. It was mainly machine gun squad. We had both heavy machine guns. They were water-cooled, fully automatic, and then the BARs, they were semi-automatic. It was quite an eventful experience, knowing without a doubt that we were going over to help our country in Korea, which is our ally. We went over in April of 1951.
Korea, 1950. Under American leadership, the United Nations went to war for the first time. What began as a conflict between rival regimes, North and South, turned into a confrontation between East and West, threatening to escalate into a Third World War.
A lot went through our mind, knowing we were going to war, not knowing what exactly it was going to be like. Of course, we all knew, at that age, we knew what people went through during the Second World War. It was still fresh in our mind, 5 years prior. It was scary, yeah. Well, we got over there right around May, and we landed in Busan, the southern tip of South Korea. And then I recall after the afternoon, we got into Seoul, Korea, which now has millions of people. At that time, the North Koreans, shortly before we got there, had almost destroyed the town. I don't recall a window that wasn't broken. There wasn't anybody walking around. It was totally vacated. And I see pictures of it now, and of course you don't recognize it. It was probably a week later when we got up on the front. We didn't get hit that first night, and we didn't get hit until a day or so later. But we were able to, it wasn't a big offense. They were kind of a sporadic, kind of a testing out our strength. At that time, they were all Koreans. There were no Chinese at that time. Until later, we confronted the Chinese. And then the next day is the next night is when I got wounded from a Chinese throwing a Russian-made hand grenade. Yeah, we had all our machine guns, every weapon we had, the mortars, the full mount going. Yeah, it was full war. It's hard, kind of hard to describe. It's just you're not scared at the time. Your adrenaline is kicking in, and all your only concern is that we're going to overpower the enemy and not let them in our perimeter. And I wasn't aware of the grenade coming until it exploded right at my foxhole. The bulk of the shrapnel, when it penetrated my back of the thighs and calves, except for one piece that went in next to my spine, which they couldn't remove due to the damage, potential damage to the nerves next to my spine. That happened about 10 o'clock at night, and I wasn't evacuated until 6 the next morning, so I was about 8 hours in the foxhole. And I was in the field hospital for 6 weeks before I went back to the front. And I had a good job when I went back to the front. I was company runner, and I delivered mental, just voice messages. Nothing was written down in case I was captured. Enemy might see what was written. And so anyway, I'd go from company headquarters to company headquarters along the line and delivered these verbal messages. I went over in April of 1951 and came back in April of 1952. When I returned from Korea, I caught a military flight to Fairbanks, Alaska, and my mom and dad met me there at the field, military field, and I spent 3 or 4 days visiting with my parents and getting reacquainted, and because I hadn't seen them for 3 years. And then I caught a bus and went down to Camp Pendleton, Southern California, where I spent the rest of my hitch until 1953, when I was discharged in October. I kept wondering when I was going to get a Purple Heart, but I never followed through on it. And after the years, it just escaped my mind. It wasn't a thought. Had a busy life, raising 4 boys, and then my youngest boy happened by chance to run into a former military person that was involved in supporting local vets. And anyway, my son happened to mention offhand my dad never got his Purple Heart, and this gentleman followed through, and I was finally on a trip back to Washington, to D.C. in 2019. A representative here from Oregon presented me the Purple Heart 68 years after.
On September 29, 1951, his parents got the following telegram. We regret to inform you that your son, Private First Class Donald Lewis Van Cleve, Jr., United States Marine Corps, has been wounded in action 24 September 1951 in the Korean area in the performance of his duty in service of his country. I realize your great anxiety, but nature of wounds not reported and delay in receipt of details must be expected. Of course, that didn't tell the whole story to his parents. His parents would later learn that Mr. Van Cleve was in a foxhole with other Marines when an incoming grenade exploded near his helmet. He lost his hearing in one ear and still has shrapnel in his back today. He went a whole bunch of years and never got this medal. And it is my great honor and privilege to present to Don McCleve his Purple Heart.
The bulk of them just got up and stood up and cheered. I couldn't believe it, because I'd put it out of my mind so long. Yeah, this is a Purple Heart that I earned over in Korea during the Korean War. It means the world. It's a treasure. Very, very proud of it. It's just a lasting lifetime memory. Let me see here. These are my buddy. I'm not in it. These are all buddies. Yeah, these are all buddies. Oh, this is me, but you can't, there's no face or anything there. Training up at 29 Palms in Southern California when we were doing winter training before we went overseas. I think these were on the base, Camp Pendleton, yeah. From the time I was discharged from the military in 1953, moving to Fairbanks, Alaska, where I went into the printing trade, became a journeyman printer, and spent all the rest of my career in Fairbanks. I was fortunate to meet my wife. We had 4 boys. It's been a terrific life. In March of 2021, I was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I underwent chemotherapy for 6 months. The test showed the cancer wasn't shrinking, so I had to give up chemo. I'm at peace with what's going on. I've had a good life. I don't have any idea if it's going to be next month or 2 months or whatever. But I'm enjoying what I can each day and each hour.